Welcome to Minimal Impact Design Standards MIDS Calculator Module 11, Green Roofs. To see other modules for other best management practices, you can go to the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, you can go to this page in the manual, or type this link into your browser, and it will take you to the Minnesota Stormwater Manual guidance. Today, we're going to first go to the manual to look at the guidance and resources associated with green roofs. Then we'll get into the calculator and talk about green roofs. And then we'll go from the calculator back into the Minnesota Stormwater Manual to show you the links that exist there. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go into the Minnesota Stormwater Manual. And let's go to the table of contents. And let's find, there's two ways we can get there. One is we could go down to the MIDS page, which is located right here. We're going to get to it through the best management practice. Green roofs is considered to be a filtration practice. So I would click on filtration practices here. And I would look for green roof and click on that. And it will take me to a portal page that deals with green roofs. And you can see there's some introductory material, and then there's a number of other pages that exist, design, construction, O&M, and so forth. The page that we're going to go to today is called Requirements, Recommendations, and Information for Using Green Roofs as a BMP in the MIDS Calculator. So I click on that, and this is the page that has the guidance for green roofs for the MIDS Calculator. If you hover over page contents, you'll see what information is on this page. It talks about the inputs for green roofs, input requirements, the methodology for volume and pollutants, how to route this practice, assumptions. There's an example application in the MIDS Calculator. Note that it's a version 2 application or example, but we didn't change anything in version 3 for green roofs, so this example is still applicable. And then there's some other information, including some links. And if you scroll down through this page, you'll see that there's screenshots from the calculator, including screenshots when you get to the example. So now we'll go to our desktop, and we'll look for the MIDS calculator icon right here. Double-click on that, and it opens up the MIDS calculator. We're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this one Green Roofs. We'll save it, and our main screen in the calculator will open up. So on this page, there are 3 required inputs. The first is you have to answer this question. Are you using the calculator to determine compliance with a construction stormwater permit? We'll say no. You have to enter a zip code so that we can get our rainfall information. We're going to use a zip code of 55155, and you'll see that the rainfall information will populate when I do that. And we have to enter an impervious area that's being routed to green roofs. Now, in the case of green roofs, you cannot route any other best management practice in the calculator to the green roof. It's only rain that falls directly on the green roof itself. And we're going to enter a value of 1/2 of an acre. You can enter other information on this page. It's not required. This would be some site information page. We're going to leave the default MIDS requirement retention requirement at 1.1 inches. If you were trying to comply with a construction stormwater permit, you probably want to change that to 1 inch. We're going to leave the phosphorus and TSS concentrations at their default values for this example. So we'll click on the schematic tab, and when we do that, you'll notice that on the left here that we now have populated a couple cells. We have 1/2 acre of impervious that's not been routed yet. We're going to route that to our green roof. And we've got the performance goal here of 1,996 cubic feet. So we're going to look for green roofs. The icon is right here. Click on the icon, hold the button down, and drag it onto your screen. and now you can work with the Green Roof's best management practice. You can double click it or right click it to get inside this. I'm going to right click and click on Edit BMP Properties. And now we're in the main screen for Green Roof. So for this example, you see that everything's blacked out here because we're not going to route we can't route pervious surface to this practice. If we had other BMPs, you would also see that you can route green roofs to other BMPs, but as I said, no other BMP can be routed to the green roof. We're going to have the entire half acre routed to the green roof's BMP. So we only have a couple inputs here. The first is the media depth. So you can go to the manual and find out what this is, but this is essentially the thickness of the material that's supporting the plants on the green roof. And we're going to use a value of 3 inches. This would be classified as an extensive roof, which means it's a fairly thin media. The surface area for this is going to be 15,000 square feet, or about 1/3 of an acre. So you'll note that it's not our entire half acre. It's only about 1/3 of an acre. You can route up to an equivalent area of non-green roof to a green roof. So for example, if I put a value of 10,000 in here, I would get an error telling me that I cannot route more than half of my impervious surface. More than half of my impervious surface cannot be something other, a conventional roof, a non-green roof. So at least half of my area has to be a green roof. So we're going to go back and input a value of 15,000 cubic feet. A couple things to note here. There are some default values in here. You cannot change these, media holding capacity and so forth. You can go to the manual and it will explain what that means and how it's involved in the calculations. It's very difficult to meet a performance goal with a green roof, and you can see in this example that we are not meeting the performance goal. There's a couple ways we can bump this number up if we wanted to. We could change the media depth to 4 inches. So now we've got more material holding water. And so if we do that, now we've come closer to meeting our performance goal. And I should explain that the amount of water that's being retained is the media depth times the area of your green roof times this media holding capacity, which is essentially a porosity value. So I could continue to bump up my media depth, which of course if you're building a green roof could get very expensive. I could make my green roof even larger, go to 20,000 square feet, and now you can see I'm finally meeting my required treatment volume. If I made my I could go back to 3 inches, and if I made my entire roof area green roof, so I get 21,780 square feet. You'll see that I'm not quite meeting my performance goal yet. You can go to the BMP Summary tab within the green roof, and this will show you the results. You can see that I'm getting 90% of my performance goal and only 45% of my annual runoff volume. I'm not getting any phosphorus removal, and the reason for that is because media that's being used for green roofs typically will leach phosphorus, at least in the first 5 to 10 years of its life. There is some evidence and data suggests that as green roofs age, they do start to retain phosphorus. But for now, at least in the manual, we're not giving credits for soft phosphorus removal. We are getting good removal of total suspended solids, however. So you can see this is a fairly easy practice to implement in the calculator. To get to the manual, you can click on the Help button. And if you did that, it would take you back to the Minnesota Stormwater Manual, the page that I showed earlier. requirements, recommendations, and information for using green roofs as a BMP and a calculator. So there is a way to go back and forth if you have questions. And as I mentioned earlier, this page will explain the calculations and where the numbers are coming from. So in this module, we talked about green roofs, how you can adjust the numbers, remembering that this practice is primarily a filtration practice. You can design it to achieve your performance goal, but of course green roofs are really expensive to build. So like I said, it's primarily going to be a filtration practice for you. To view other modules, you can go to the MIDS calculator page shown here, or type this link into your browser, and it will take you back to the manual. That ends Module 11, Green Roofs.